Okay. Parshas Bamidbar. You have in this pamphlet. You also have the Mamarim from Shavuos. So.
Finish it today.
The what? The whole pamphlet. Yeah. Not bekamas, but maybe be'echos. If we take it into Pnimius, the whole in the Matan Torah is Kabbalah Satera b'Simcha b'Pnimius. Anyhow, so we're starting from page 3. Parshas Bamidbar is always the parsha before Shavuos. The simple reason is that there should be a separation between Parshas B'chukaisai, all the Teicha, all the rebuke, and Shavuos, so they have the Parshas Bamidbar in between. But as we will see from the explanation of the Alter Rebbe, that actually you see a direct connection between the Teicham, the Indian that is described in the beginning of the Parsha, to Dafka, to the Indian of Shavuos, the Indian of Matan Torah. So it says in the Parsha, Vidaber Hashem, the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar, Vidaber Hashem al Moshe Bamidbar Sinai Be'el Meid, Su Esreish V'geim Eligulguleisam. So the Eibusher spoke to Moshe. So the Torah gives two simanim. First, it says two signs, two indicators. Number one, it says it was in Midbar Sinai, and number two, it says Ayel Meid. And what was the command? What did Hashem command Moshe? Su'u esreish, to count the Bnei Yisrael. So it says Ligul Galeisam and L'beis Havreisam. So you have to count each one. You have to count the Shevet, each individual, but based on which Shevet he belongs to. So the Alter Rebbe asks two questions. Lahavin Yinin Nesiyas Reish, or Ma Inyan Parshas Aleil Meid. So the first question is, we know that Su'us Reish is the meaning of counting, but why does the Torah? Why is the Eibusher describe counting with the lashon Su'us Reish? Su'u means to lift up. So Nesiyas Reish, in other words, what happens during the counting that based on what happens, it's an Nesiyas Reish, it's lifting up the head. And where are we lifting up the head? So that it says L'gulguleisam. So the head is being lifted up to L'gulguleisam. So we have to, obviously we see there's a difference between Reish and Gulgelis, as Alter Rebbe will explain. And the second thing is the siman that it gives, this indicator of where the counting is. It says Dafka, it's an Ayel Meid. In other Maimarim, the question, the way the question is asked is, why do you have siman b'teich siman? Two simanim. But Akapan here the Alter Rebbe asks specifically, not on Midbar Sinai, which is also something in itself, but here the Alter Rebbe is focused on why it says Ba'el Meid. So in order to understand this, the Alter Rebbe brings a Zohar. But before the Zohar, the Alter Rebbe brings a klal, a general rule that we know from other places, that hine ksiv nasa adam b'tzalmenu. So this is a klal that the person is made in the image of the Eibusher. What do we mean when we say the person is in the image of Hashem? That we see just like a mashal. You have a mashal, which is a mashal to understand, a nimshal to understand something else. So the mashal is similar to the nimshal. If there was no connection between the mashal and the nimshal, then you wouldn't be able to understand the mashal. You wouldn't be able to understand the nimshal. But because there is some type of connection, So you can understand from the mashal, you can understand the nimshal. So too, the Adam, a person, the Eibishter made a person, is that he's a mashal to a nimshal. That we can understand from the person, we can understand godliness, we can understand the Eibishter. So that's a general idea. So here the Alter Rebbe is more specifically, Shekameish yesh reish v'gulgelis. B'gashmis haguf, just like you have a reish, a head, and v'gulgelis, a skull. What's the difference between the reish and the head and the skull? The Alter Rebbe says, B'gashmis, what is the gashmis take a difference? Shareish, when we say reish, what do we mean when we say reish? We mean mayach, it means the brain. The head can mean the whole head. But mainly what we mean when we say reish, it means the mayach. The etzam egulgelis makifei. And then you have this skull which encompasses the brain. So kein yesh beruchnis hanefesh. So too you have in ruchnis. The nefesh has tlas mechin. Shein Chabad. So in other words, you have two things. You have the physical body, you have the nefesh, and then you have understanding the way it is lamaila, the way it is above, by the Eibishter. So the Alter Rebbe, so it's one is a mashal of the other, which is a mashal of the other. It's two. The body. The Eibishter made in such a way that it was fit to receive, just like you have different parts of the body, which each part of the body has, it has to be tailor-made to the neshama. In other words, that the neshama that could be invested within that part of the body, and through it functions. So through the eye, the neshama sees, and through the ear, the neshama hears. And the Eibishter made that the keli, that the vessel, which is the body, is fit, tailor-made to fit that aspect of the neshama, which allows through it that the neshama can do its function. So the eye to see and the ear to hear, etc. So here the same is true with regards to the brain. The brain is also made in such a way that you have 3 chambers in the brain, and those 3 chambers are there to fit, tailor-made, so that the neshama, these 3 aspects of the neshama, chachma, bina, das, can now be invested within the brain, that they function through those parts of the brain. So kein yesh beruchnis hanefesh las mechin shein Chabad. Then you have the ratzin, which comes from the nefesh to the midas. In other words, the ratzin that comes from the chachma, bin, and das, which that is the impetus, which generates the midas. So we seem to say that you have the ratzin, which is from the nefesh, from the Chabad, to the midas. But that's not the real taich of Gilgelis. Gilgelis means the skull which surrounds. We said the skull surrounds the brain. So the brain, the 3 chambers, we're talking about the nefesh is the Chabad, it's chachma bin hadas. And what is higher than the seichel? What's higher than seichel is the ratzin, to want. But here, within ratzin, you have two different dargas. You have the ratzin, so in general, the Gilgelis refers to ratzin. But ratzin, you have the way the ratzin is in a lower, it's in a lower way, in a lower sense. which that is the way the Chabad affects the midas. So the word ahava, love, comes from the word ava, to want. But it's the way the nefesh wants, but it's not what's being felt is not so much the want, but the way it has a certain image, a form in an emotion that he wants, means he loves. He wants it presents itself in an emotional way, which means that he wants to have. He has he's moved emotionally to be close to something, to be connected with something. But what lies within that emotion is that want. But with the love, it's not, what's felt is not the want as much as what's felt is the emotional aspect of it. So that's the ratzin, the way it is from the moyach, from the brain to the midah. But then you have a ratzin, the way it is, like you say, pure ratzin. Pure ratzin, not the way it has, the way it's in an emotional, described in an emotional sense, not the way that it has in an emotional form. So that's a ratzin which is higher than seichel. The is-ratzin v'is-ratzin. Is-ratzin l'sata v'is-ratzin le'ela. So the is-ratzin and is-ratzin is a lashon it's a terminology from the Zohar. It means that there is a ratzin and there is a ratzin. Two different levels of ratzin. There's a lower level of ratzin and a higher level of ratzin. The lower level of ratzin, that's the ratzin which we said comes from the moyach into the midas. And the higher level of ratzin is the ratzin which is higher than shunikar ratzin el, and shubikan is makif ala moyach. Okay, so this was just to explain. This is the beginning. Is based on the pasuk Nasa Adam B'Tzalmeinu, that a person is made in the image of the Eibishter, meaning to say that we can look at the image of the person and as by way of mashal and understand the way it is in a spiritual sense, both within the nefesh and the way it is in Lamaila by the Eibishter. So to better understand this concept of these two levels of ratzin, the Alter Rebbe is going to introduce a Zohar, which we should know from Tanya, and from that Zohar, it alludes to both these two levels, to these two different levels of ratzin. The Zohar talks about the lower level of ratzin, but the fact that there's a lower level of ratzin means that there's also a higher level of ratzin. But the lower level of ratzin, this is what we see in the what it says in the Zohar. So let's see. Hine ksiv noida basharim baila. So we said it's Eshes Chaya. Baila, her husband. Who's her husband? That refers to the Eibishter. Noida basharim baila. She knows, which we're talking about, the neshama, each individual knows their baila, knows their husband, knows the Eibishter, basharim, at the gates. What does it mean by the gates? So the Zohar says the word sha'arim, gates, comes from the word also shiur, which means an amount. Every person has an amount, a certain ability. Just like you say, how much do you understand? You measure. understand so much. Someone understands more, someone understands less. So there's a certain shear, a certain amount that a person understands. So too, in the pasuk, Neida Basharim Baila, the Zohar says the Eibishter is known based on every person, every neshama has its ability to know the Eibishter so much. And it goes further, that we know that there are Nun Shari Bina. There are 50 gates. What does the Shari Bina mean? In Ruchnius, in Avodas Hashem, so the Midas, in order to, in other words, in Gashmias, we don't have to think too much when it comes to igniting, when it comes to awakening the Midah, the emotion, it comes pretty natural. Right? You don't have to think someone wants a certain food or enjoys a certain music or whatever else it may be. It's pretty natural. He doesn't need to think about why he enjoys it and what the maila is, the advantages of chulu. It comes almost instantaneously. That's the nefesh habahamis. But when it comes to alikus, when it comes to spiritual things, so the alikus, the love, the fear, the emotion needs to be ignited. There has to be something behind it, an impetus to awaken it, to create it. Where is that coming from? So that's coming based on the understanding. The chachma and bina that one understands and one is mizbeinin, as the Alter Rebbe speaks about many times in Tanya, the hisbanenus, the understanding of that's what creates the midas. And there could be many different levels. In other words, once we say that the midah, in order to initiate the midah, you have to have an understanding. You have to have chachma and bina. So you have many different parts to that. Just like what we say in Sfiras Ha'omer, you have chesed, sheba chesed, and gvura sheba chesed, and tiferet sheba chesed. In chesed itself, which would be ava, you have many different levels. In general, we talked about 7 different levels. In other words, from chesed to malchus. And then in gvura, you have 7 different levels. And in netzach, you have 7 different levels. All of these, what's behind each one, each experience, let's call them different experiences, emotional experiences, each one has a understanding, a chachma, an awareness that is behind it. So when we say there are nun shari bina, there are 50 gates. Gates here means there are different pathways through the understanding that the emotion is initiated and the emotion is awakened. Each one with its own understanding. So the each one of the spheres points to a different gate. So the Neida Basharim Baila, the gate here that the person, the way the Zohar explains is that the neshama, the individual, knows Baila, knows Hashem, Basharim in the gates, meaning each one depending on that gate which is revealed and what the way he works on himself and he's mizbeinin and he thinks about it, that arouses that is that particular gate that he goes through in order to achieve that. So the midah is the outcome. the outcome of his understanding the indicator of that is the midah that he has, whatever midah it is, whatever emotion that it evokes. So all of that is connected with the word sha'arim, the word gate. So we have two points in the word noida basharim. Both, number one is shiur, each person according to his understanding, and also according to the gate, according to the pathway, the gate through which he goes through, and that points to a different midah. Look at the Alter Rebbe. Upirish b'zoyar. In other words, Zohar explaining this word sha'arim, the pasuk noida basharim ba'il l'chol chada from shura delay, k'meid mishar belibe. According to that he is mishar in his heart, according to how he understands, and according to the different gates. Ha'idei sheyadahainu. The Alter Rebbe explains that further. That he thinks of in his Chabad, with his intellect. Chacham ben das. Bigdula Saint Seif Baruchu Kfi Emek Machshavte Vikashayuchal Seis Belibe. That according to the depth of his machshava, and that translates into how much he's able to contain within his heart. Because the heart, again, that's the outcome. That's the emotional outcome of that which he thinks about. So through that, he recognizes the Eibishter, and he has a strong desire to connect with the Eibishter. So all of that is understood in the word basharim. Hakam deles machshavet visa beklal. So it says in the Zohar, Hashem b'sharim. We know from another place that les machshavet visa beklal, that no, you can't possibly grasp Hashem. So how do these two things go? How from one side do we say noida basharim, he is known, and from the other side we say that less machshava, you can't possibly grasp him. So the distinction we make is: are we talking about Hashem himself, or are we talking not Hashem himself, but that which Hashem allows us to understand, which is on a lower level, just like a mashal for that is the sun itself. We can't look at; it's too bright. But we can. But once there's a shield, then we can experience the sun in many, many different ways. So the less machshava tvisa beklal, that you can't possibly grasp Hashem, that's Hashem himself, the etzem. But the way it manifests, etc., that we could. So that's also what we mean when we say there's 50 different gates. The different midas, the midas are those are the ways through which we're able to grasp the Eibishter. So when we say that for example, in the world of Atzilus, you have Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, you have the spheres. The spheres are exactly the tools which, through it, we're able to grasp Hashem. In each one, according to their ability. That's the different sha'arim. That's the different gates. But higher than Atzilus, it's less machshava tfisa beklal. We can't possibly grasp. That's what the Alter Rebbe says here. Hagam das machshava tfisa beklal hainu bei davke. Bei, the word less machshava tfisa bei. Dahainu batzmusa yumuhusa kaviyachol. But that's only in mehusa batzmusa. But beyond that, meaning, and aside from that which the way the Eibishter manifests in different on the different levels in the different spheres, that you could. Not only could you, the Alter Rebbe says, Aval hine zeh kol ha'adam. That's the whole purpose of man, Like it says in the Zohar, why one of the things it says in the Zohar is the Eibusher created man in order that he should understand him. He should be able to understand as much as he could, to be able to connect with Hashem, to be able to evoke that emotion, that strong bond. These beinin b'mashu mahava elu misalyenim, to think about, to meditate that which the Eibusher is the creator of the worlds, adin misper, umechayes kulam, and he gives life to the world, umetziyam ayin liyesh, and brings the worlds forth from nothing to something, umechadsham b'tuva b'chol yom u'b'chol rega, and bringing the worlds forth from nothing to something is continuous, every moment. So all of these things, according to every person, according to his ability, he's able to broaden his mind and to excite the heart and his nefesh, l'kasher nafshe b'Hashem, to connect to the Eibusher, u'ledavke beh, and to cleave to him, according to the depth of his understanding and the depth of his mind. So all of this is he's able to initiate and to arouse based on his understanding. And not only he's able to, but that's the purpose of men. That's the purpose of the neshama coming down to this world, to be able to the Eibusher created us in order that we should have that understanding. So all of this is done actively. In other words, this is part of Avodas Hashem. We learn Chassidus, and not only we learn Chassidus, but one needs to meditate on the Chassidus that he learns, through which he allows himself to appreciate and to understand as more and more and more. The Hine Noida. So that all of that was the word Sha'arim, but the word Noida is Lashon Nifal. Nifal means it's the effect. Noida, he's known. He becomes known. Kishvacha de Kuchabrichu, who baila b'de Matronisa, the praise of the Eibusher, which is the husband of Matronisa. Matronisa is Malchus, which in this we're talking about the neshama, which is the source. Malchus is the source of all neshamas. Shenoida basharim, that he becomes known. Shehu yizbarach hu amashmeles atzmei, he lowers himself. B'ishtalshlos v'yispashlos g'dulase yizbarach liyes noida al yidei kain v'nitvas b'karavish v'levamik, and he becomes grasped, each person in his within. L'fum adim mishar b'libe davke kol chad v'chad l'fum erich shiur delay. Everyone according to his ability. Lahamshich v'lekashe lav yizbarach l'davke b'y. And this is also, the Tzemach Tzedek points out, the word noida, he becomes known, but as we know from Tanya also, that noida, das, is in to connect. So he becomes known, that sounds of a more of an intellectual pursuit, but within that is also the idea of being connected to the Eibusher. Ki noida ulashin is kashrus k'noida. Shebamakim shatameitzik dulasei shamatameitz vasnusei. That where you find the greatness of Hashem, what we see is the greatness of Hashem is really the Eibusher lowering himself and allowing himself to be understood by us. So all of that is in Seichel, is in Chabad, Chachma bin Adas. But what we said before, that's a lower level of Ratzin. That's the Ratzin that from there it's the impetus and is administered within the leiv, within the heart, so that brings about a strong ratzin, which is behind it. That's the fuel. But what's behind the midah is the ratzin, that drive to connect with the Eibishter. But that's a lower level of ratzin. In other words, that's a level of ratzin that we, through our avodah, we create as a result of the noida. The Eibishter, from one side, the Eibishter lowers himself in Seder Yishtalshalos. He allows himself to be known. And we have the Mishayir, we do through the Hizbarinus and through the understanding, we grasp Hashem as much as we can. And that brings about the inyan of the emotion that we have. That the Yiratzin that comes from there, that's the Kiyam Amidus from Ava and Ava of Ava V'Yira. Sha'ava hu l'davar shukr tzeinai. That in general, what is Ava? Ava, the love, is something which is in accordance with the Eibishter's will. B'chein le'epech hasidno davar sheneged tzeinai. Yeah.
Below his das, the mata mina das.
Yeah. So this is
by process of engaging with the midos in here, and then it's below the das.
It's like within das, no? The Matan Das is like this all happens within understanding. It's within the process of
the ratzin that is being. The Alter Rebbe describes the ratzin is this connection, the connection which is that he wants to connect with the Eibishter in a very intimate way. He wants to lidavka, to completely be one with Hashem. But where is that coming from? Where is that awareness coming from? Where is that that's coming as a result of his understanding of how much he's able to appreciate. Here the Alter Rebbe doesn't say it, but this is the same thing. We say there's Ava b'chol levavcha, there's Ava b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha. We said, what's the Ava that you love Hashem? Ki hu chayecha. The Eibishter is your life. In other words, he realizes that the Eibishter is the true source of life. That understanding that the Eibishter is the source of life, that comes from his awareness. There's a higher level of Ratzin, that's in the next chapter that Alter Rebbe is going to talk about, which is beyond one's understanding. In a nutshell, from these two levels is the difference between nefesh, ruach, neshama. We know that there's 5 levels of the neshama. There's the naran, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. That's one level. Then you have chaya yechida. The nefesh, ruach, and neshama is that experience that the neshama has, which is contained within the understanding. So through the hisbanness, through the understanding, he can have that level of experience, that level of awareness, and that brings about a ratz, and the nefesh has a strong drive for this connection. But the general arcing the idea behind it is within the realm of noida basharim bailo, within the sha'arim, within the ability of one's understanding, one's appreciation, one's awareness. Then you have the chaya yechida, the essence of the neshama, which there, the ratzin there of wanting to be one with the Eibishter is coming not from a place of understanding, is coming and realizing that Hashem is the source of life, but coming from a place that it's one with Hashem, not for any specific reason, but it's because it's the connection there is like a father and a son, which is it's from one. They're one and the same, and that is a ratzin which comes from the depth of the connection between the neshama. Where is that? That's the chaya yechida. So the Alter Rebbe that's what the two levels of Ratzin is. These two levels of neshama: the naran, the nefesh ruach neshama aspect, and the chay yechida aspect. So the Alter Rebbe is going to say that the nefesh ruach neshama, that every person has the ability to engage in. Like it says, noida bashar and baila. That's the command, to know as much as you can of the Eibishter. The chay yechida, that there's nothing that you don't need to do. That is innate within the neshama. But there's times because of Avinisechem, because of the Averis that we do, that we sever and we don't feel. We're not aware of that that innate connection. We're not that it's hidden. So that has to be revealed, and that happens Shavuos. That happens on Shavuos time, but we do it. We initiate that through tshuva, because it's not there. You don't need to create something there. You just have to remove the that which that became severed. So as Alter Rebbe says, that imagine if we have different when a person's sick. So there's different medicines to bring back, right, the chayes, bring back life, and that it should be regenerated, and he should feel that the neshama should once again flow properly. What don't you have? We don't have a refuah for if someone's head is completely severed from the body. He loses his head, right? Someone loses his head completely. So you can't put them back together. But if you would have a refuah for that, and then you can reattach the head. What we're talking about here, this type of reattaching that because of a person, the way the Averis that he did, so it became severed. This is reattaching the head that he should be able to again experience and feel that depth of the neshama, the chay yechida part of the neshama. And that's the su'as reish, to lift up the head, the gilgolas, to once again recapture that yechida experience that we lost as a result of the separation, and that's that happens Shavuos time. That's the higher level of Ratzin.
And it happened to everybody.
Yeah.